At this moment, I'd like to look at electronic portfolios, which is a new trend that it kind of started about 10 years ago, and it's just the idea of having student teachers come in and bring electronic portfolios, as well as teachers who interview. This research article looks at electronic portfolios in hiring of K through 12 teachers, and more importantly, it's a very good article because it looks at the perception of administrators and how they view electronic portfolios. This is a research study that analyzed how they viewed this. Portfolios have been used for decades in many different fields. The practice of using portfolios in job searches appears to be gaining popularity as well. In education, portfolios were first unveiled as an assessment method for determining student learning in K through 12 schools. More recently, universities have implemented electronic portfolios in an effort to document student learning for accreditation purposes. You'll see that site was 2006. But generally, portfolios is where you create a notebook and you give to your university supervisor. And then later on, whenever you look for a job, you would give it to your prospective employer and say, this is a sample of my work. This has been done in art schools for many years, where artists show a portfolio of their work. However, the idea of electronic portfolio has emerged over the last 10 years, where we can show a better presentation of our work. With the transition to electronic portfolios for potential use in the selection of teachers, it is important to gain insight from persons directly involved in the hiring process as to whether or not the electronic portfolio is a valued tool. So this research looked at these questions right here. What are the pros and cons of using portfolios in the hiring process? What should principals desire in an electronic employment portfolio? What delivery method would be preferred? And what factors predict principals' likelihood of using electronic portfolios? At this point, there's a background research on this one. And it says electronic portfolio can be web-based or formatted using other digital media, such as a CD. Electronic portfolios for employment purposes in education represent a teaching candidate's accomplishments by showcasing, and this is what should be the heart of it, teaching, learning, and reflective artifacts. The electronic portfolio broadens the typical paper pencil format of an employment portfolio by including artifacts that may potentially blend audio, video, graphics, and text. There are many benefits associated with the electronic format. First, it allows, obviously, the candidate to use a larger amount of material. It also allows them to show the teacher, the principal, that they are on the cutting edge of technology. On the contrary, many hiring officials express skepticism regarding the candidate's ability to actually teaching and what the portfolio documented. Plainly stated, employment portfolios typically only exhibit a teacher's successes, not weaknesses. Therefore, the overall presentation, when done well, could potentially overshadow the actual substance of the artifacts and teacher's qualifications. In a recent study where hiring officials were interviewed, the principal reported opposition altogether with regard to portfolios. Dissatisfaction with the idea of electronic portfolios in particular pointed to an overabundance of information and hiring officials' lack of technology skills and time. So some of the actual principals and hiring people did not have time to look at the portfolio. And also, some of them didn't even know how to access the technology. More specifically, a panel comprised of principals, school officials, and university faculty believed the overabundance of information and limited time inhibited the use of employment portfolios in the screening process altogether. One researcher study suggested that electronic portfolio viewing for only the short list of teacher candidates would be more appropriate. Furthermore, thought that standardizing the portfolio review process would be essential. So instead of walking in with a portfolio that could be completely different from someone else and have different topics, such as classroom management examples, such as unit plans, they would like more of a standardized look at portfolios. Recent studies also offered insight with regard to portfolio content. One broad recommendation is to decrease the trend for including too much information. suggesting that candidates be more selective with the artifacts. So it's very important that the selection of material is, you put some thought into it. You need to think, okay, I'm going to go into this hiring process. I'm going to go see the principal. What part of my portfolio do I need to include? So let's look at the methods. The data was collected through 19-item survey. They were developed specifically for the use of the study. 100 participants were randomly selected from a population of 1,000 principals in one Midwestern state. This sampling included both principals from both private and public schools at all levels. They did a follow-up email. In all, there were 37 principals who consented to participate in our study. The majority of the participants, 81%, were over 40 years of age. The number of years serving as a hiring official ranged from 1 year to 30 years, with the average being 11. The 19-item electronic portfolio survey for this study included 3 additional questions for principals. So it discusses the instruments. So let's look at what the results were. What are the pros and cons using portfolios in the hiring process? Principals' desired portfolio artifacts by percentage. The number one thing that a principal wants in the electronic portfolio is a candidate's resume. The second thing they want, of course, is references, then letters of recommendations, a college transcript. So this is what the principal would like to see. Student-teacher evaluations, those are good. Candidate's previous work experience. Philosophy statement is just 64%. Video clip of a candidate interacting with students in a classroom setting, 64%. That's pretty good, especially when it's electronic and you can be accessible right there. Sample lesson plans. Now let's look at some things that are not desired. A sample test, 35% only wanted that. Artifacts to document experience with ethnic and cultural diversity, 24%. Service learning, 21%. College methods class, 21%. And so I would like a statement of how the candidate uses assessment, 2%. Authentic assessment, 2%. Photos of classroom organization, 2%. So you see the top 5 are the most important elements. And the number 1 is the candidate's resume. Now, how do you want, I'm going to hide that real quick. How does a principal want an electronic portfolio presented to them? So you walk into the principal's office and you're about to be interviewed for the job. How does the principal want you to present your electronic? So imagine like an iPad, iPad 2, a cell phone, a web address, a laptop, a CD-ROM. How do they want it presented? Number 1 way, a website address. You can do a real simple YouTube video or something like that, or any kind of just a website address where you give them an address and you say, go here and you will see my electronic portfolio. That is 51%. CD to play, 22%. DVD to play, 25%. And there's really no other way. So a website address is the best way to go. Multiple regression summary. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about multiple regression. Principles, responses to options for increasing electronic. 86% felt that there should be a standardized form or a standardized way to do an electronic portfolio. So they think that it's just like a wild west out there when it comes to portfolios, and that people are creating portfolios on however they want to create them. So there needs to be a standardized portfolio system. So I would say if we were at Mississippi State, which we are, I would say we would need to create our teacher candidates a standardized portfolio, electronic portfolio system, and that it would be really good that when they walk in there, they show them a website address. Discussion. When comparing findings related to the pros and cons of electronic portfolios in the hiring process, this study with past studies, several consistencies are noted. The majority of the participants include written feedback with regard to the benefits and limitations of the portfolio. Those that surpassed these survey items were asked to do so in order for us to gain information. 3 of the 4 emerging themes deemed as beneficial: viewing national artifacts, comprehensive look, and convenience. All of the limitations of an electronic portfolio, these things included time was a big issue. Timing of the presentation, poorly prepared portfolio, and evaluating it. So with that said, after reading this research article, we see that the best way to do an electronic portfolio is to have top 5 items on your electronic portfolio and have them pointed to a web address. So whenever you're doing your interview, the principal sits down and he says, do you have a portfolio? You say, I do have a hard copy, but I also have an electronic portfolio, and you can go to this web address. He clicks it in, done, there it is. And he can look at that at his own time, and he can show other people that. He can also bookmark it. And if he loses it, you can email it to him. It's easier than doing a DVD. It's easier doing a CD-ROM. The study did have some new findings. Participants in the study identified the opportunity to view a candidate's organizational skills via an electronic portfolio as being beneficial. So by creating an electronic portfolio, it also shows the principal how organized you are. And the word organization was mentioned multiple times in the written comments. Organizational skills. And that is very important for new teachers. It's very important for teachers who are going to a new job or another job. Organizational skills are very important. The time a candidate's lack of organization portrayed a negative view of the prospective employer. Poorly prepared portfolios, say that 3 times fast. Poorly prepared portfolios show the principal that you are not organized well. Very good article. One recommendation is teacher educators. The information provided via a statewide survey has proven to be an invaluable tool. We would recommend other teacher educators gather similar data through our survey, and that this idea that we should have electronic portfolios and they should be outlined. So you automatically see that this is a very good article about electronic portfolios and how principals view them. Hope you learned a lot from this. Have a good day.